Hello everyone, JavaScript Ways here. In this video, I'll show you all the Flexbox properties you'll need in 99% of cases. The reason why I'm making this video is, first, the Flexbox is the core of web and the core of CSS, and you need to master it because you're gonna need it for every web application or every website you will be building. And the second reason is people are confused with Flexbox because there are just so many properties, so I'm gonna list all of them you will need. So I've been coding for 7+ years, and these properties I'm gonna show you, I use them in 99% of cases, and that's definitely enough for a start. And basically that's enough for building almost any type of web application. So let's go. Flexbox is used to create a 2D layout. If you want to create 3D layout like tables, then use grid. And for more complex cases, you need to use grid. But trust me, Flexbox is gonna be enough for you in most of the cases. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a parent container, and it's just a div with a class parent. It has a border, it has explicit width and height for this purpose. And we have two child elements, like just basic divs, squares with white background with a border and width and height. And now we'll start with the first property, and on parent you need to set display flex. As you saw, this other squared jumped to the same row. And it's important to say that when you set display flex on a parent container, that means that that parent will control layout for the children, for all the children there, but just for first children. If you have something inside those squares, that will be ignored. That will be the same as it was before. So Flexbox and that parent controls layout only of first children. Okay, and after flex, we have flex direction. And its default value is row. That's why when we set display flex, those squares were in the same row. You have other, like column, and yeah, mostly you will be using row and column. As I said, default value is row 1. So even if I untick this, it will still be row. But let's set it to row, just to make it more clear. And that flex direction is crucial, because flex direction determines the main axis. If flex direction is row, like in this case, then main axis is row. That means that the cross axis is column. But in our scenario, main axis is row because flex direction is row. And main axis is always controlled by justify content. Let's repeat it again. Flex direction sets the main axis, and that main axis is always controlled by justify content. So that means that justify content, another super important property, will control row. And we have a couple of options. First is flex start, cool, so items are on the start. Then flex end, items are at the end, in the end. Then we have center, items are centered. And 3 more cool values that you need to know are space between, so that will distribute them evenly without anything at the beginning or at the end. Then we have space around. That means that on left and right side of every element will be half of that spacing. So we have full spacing in between, and in the beginning and in the end we have half of that spacing. And we have then space evenly, and that's equal amount of spacing around the elements. That of course works no matter how many children you put inside. So let's come here and let's actually put 2 more children. So it's like this now. Doesn't look that well, but if we set display flex and justify content, let's go to these. So space between, space around, and space evenly. Now it's a bit too crowded, so the difference between space evenly and space around is not that visible, but you can still see like full spacing, full spacing, full spacing, half of that spacing on the left, and half of that spacing on the right at the end. and space evenly. This spacing is the same for everything. So in the middle of those elements, or in the beginning, or in the end, everything is the same. But I will remove those two children now because it's going to be too crowded. I'll set display flex, and I'll set, well, we don't need to set anything because justify content by default it will look like this, and flex direction is row by default. So but let's just set that flex direction so that you are aware that flex direction is actually row, because flex direction determines main axis. So row is main axis. That means that cross axis is column, and cross axis is always controlled by align items. And you have three properties here. So you have flex start, you have flex end, and you have center. And that are values used for align items. And once again, align items always controls the cross axis. But let's remove it. Now we will change flex direction to column. And what did we say? Flex direction determines the main axis. Main axis is now column, and main axis is always controlled by justify content. I'm repeating that so much because it's crucial, it's really important. And now you can see that justify content controls column, so we can put like flex end, flex start, we can put center, we can put space around, space between, space evenly. Those 6 values you will use for justify content. But justify content now controls column. And that means that align items controls row, because row is a cross axis. And you have these 3. So center, you have flex end, and flex start. Of course, you can see that you can combine justify content and align items here and use it together. And now you want to control only a specific item. So let's put like 4 of them actually here. No, I lost it. So, okay. So you want to align everything to center, but you only want to align last item, last child, to the top. And while align items and justify content are set on parent component and control all the children elements, if you put align self just on a child, you can control only its position. So we said beginning, okay, we'll put it here. And you have other property, which is justify self, which works in the same way. Awesome. Let's now remove all these. We can keep it like this. Now an important property is flex wrap. So the default value of flex wrap is no wrap. That means that, actually I'll remove it and show you. If we do this, nothing will wrap, because default value is no wrap. And if I set flex wrap to wrap, that means that new elements will jump in the new row, which is pretty cool. And yeah, basically you have wrap and no wrap. No wrap, as I said, default value, it's gonna behave like this. Okay, let's now remove these children, and the last property I want to show to you is gap. So let's set display flex, and let's set gap to 32 pixels. And that's just spacing between items. And you can set it to anything. I mean, it's pretty simple, just spacing between those items. And you should actually use that spacing quite often, especially if you have a couple of children elements and equal spacing between them. It's much more correct to use Flexbox layout and gap than setting margins on every individual element. So yeah, definitely a useful property. And those are all properties that you will need for Flexbox in like 99% of cases. So display flex, flex direction, align items, justify content, align self, justify self, gap, and flex wrap. So you have other things like flex grow, flex shrink, flex basis, but to be honest, you won't need them that often. Like, as I've said, everything I showed to you is needed and it's good for 99% of cases. And those three properties, basis, grow, and shrink, can be a bit more complex. So, I don't know. At the beginning, I think you should focus on everything we've gone through before and then later jump on those three. Because, yeah, you will be able to build everything, almost everything with what I showed you. And if you want to break into tech, you want to check out this video sponsor, Careerist. They're the ultimate solution for breaking into tech. First, their advisors will advise you to see which field is the best for you. Then you'll have classes and after it a 100% remote internship. With that working experience, you're ready for a job hunt with a dedicated mentor to help you on that journey. You'll have access to their job board with exclusive listings. And with all that, money back is guaranteed. Go to careers.com now, link in description.